Will you believe me if I tell you India has a very important role to play in James Cameron's mega movie, Avatar: The Way of Water? You don't have a choice. You have to believe me because I have proof. Meet Pavani Rao, the VFX supervisor on Avatar 1 as well as 2. Pavani Rao, welcome to WION.
Thank you so much for having me.
First, I have to tell you, you make us very, very proud.
Thank you. Thank you. That's much appreciated.
You know, when I would tell my friends and everybody around that, do you know an Indian is responsible for this Avatar? They would not believe me, but now I have proof. Here you go.
And there's tons of Indians responsible. It's a very, very diverse group. I had a ton of people from India on my team from all over India, various parts. So India has something to be proud. There's a big crew who's from India.
Wow, that's so amazing, you know, to know something like this. But let's start with this. Please, Pavani, can you explain my viewers? I'm also a lame person when I do not know anything about VFX. You know, can you explain the viewers what was your role in as a VFX supervisor? What does a VFX supervisor do?
So my role as a VFX supervisor is I'm ultimately responsible for delivering a certain number of sequences to Jim to what his vision is for the movie. So I worked on when the Sully family are on their ekrans and they leave their home in high camp, and you see them flying in and there's these crashing waves and they go into the Metkina, the lagoon. So all of those sequences that are inside the atoll, the kids jumping in the water, the sequence when some of the Maruis are catching fire. So I was responsible for a lot of them. So my role, what it does is it sits between three things. One is Jim's vision on creatively what we need to do in the shots. The second aspect is technology, because you need to drive the technology. So I drive the technology to be able to get that creative vision. And the third and most important thing is the budget to get these two together. So I sit between technology, the creative images, and the budget.
Now, in my head, a VFX supervisor usually sits on a laptop and is constantly working. Is that how it works?
Pretty much. A big part of my job is looking at images, and that's where the images are. They're on a computer. So we have some proprietary VFX tools where I can, the whole day long, I am approving images and I'm looking images. But there's also a huge part of my job, which is interacting with my team, which is interacting with all the various departments that are upstream, collaborating with the various departments, because this project, Way of Water, it's not a linear workflow. This is not, because visual effects, a lot of people think that someone makes a ball and someone moves the ball and someone lights the ball and someone renders the ball, but that's not how a project like this works. There's a lot of back and forth and a lot of collaboration. Someone makes the wall, but checks with the third person in line to say, this is going to work for you, and they come back. So that is part of my role, is making sure that all of those people are talking to each other, and it's not a linear flow, it's a collaboration, sometimes going backwards and forwards. And also a big part is working with John, working with Jim and Lightstorm, and making sure at the end of the day, we're all one big team who are part of this thing that's much bigger than any of us.
Is it possible for you, like you said, what I am getting here is a lot of layering happens here, right? In a scene, yes, we have elements, like 6 elements, then 6 other different people are making those elements and putting it together, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, I get it now. Okay. But Pavani, can you explain any scene that has been very challenging for you guys, but at the same time very satisfying when you saw it on screen? Any such scene?
Yes, it's when the Sully kids dive into the reef the first time and they're unable to hold their breath and they're struggling. First of all, from a movie point of view, I really, really like this scene. I think it's one of my favorite scenes. It's because the performance of these actors is so great that there's no dialogue. There is no dialogue in this entire scene. And you still get what's going on because it really comes through. You just have a couple of subtitles and you have music, but you know what's happening. And I think that part is really successful. The other part I like is this is the first scene that we did. There was an underwater scene. And we spent a lot of time making it look realistic, but also looking like something that you want to go to, that's Pandoran, that's Metcaina. And it's very special to me because I think we got that playfulness in there. We got that look, this exotic corals and all this beautiful creature work that was in there. I think it's a very playful, happy world building scene. It makes me smile when I look at it in the theater.
It made us smile too. It was a world created where we wanted to be a part of, you know?
Yes.
So beautiful. And it looks surreal. Like, it looks like we are in it. The VFX is so good. But tell me one thing, whenever we talk about VFX in Indian films also, the parameters are set only by Hollywood. So there's a benchmark. So we always say, like, it's not like how Hollywood films make it. You know, it's not to that level. But here we are, India is making those Hollywood films look this way, you know. So what do you have to say to that?
I personally think that the pool of artists who are working on the VFX films, whether it's Hollywood films or films made in India, we're all the same. We're all the same pool of artists. I've had people who've joined my team who just worked on some really great movies in Mumbai, or who really worked on some great movies in Canada or somewhere else. So the artists are hugely talented, and I think that's what they're doing. And I can speak a little bit to how we do it at WetaFX. WetaFX motto is measure thrice, cut once. We do a lot of reference study. We spend a lot of time making things look real. And it doesn't matter if it's something Pandora that we've never seen before, or if it's something that is a scale. Like, for example, the characters in Avatar, they're 9 feet tall, right? So that's 1.5 times any human scale. But when we shoot something really simple, like when the Sully family land in the Metcaina village, and we have that first scene where Neteri took the little girl, and she drops her off and lands in the sand, and her feet are displacing the sand, and we all this water interaction. It's one shot, but we knew the camera was going to be really close to her feet, and you're going to see her land. So we found a person who was Took size, who was 6 feet basically, because she's a small child, but that's 6 feet. Went down to a beach, shot the reference, use that for all our simulations, and actually match the reference so that it looked perfect before we did the real before we did the real simulation on Took. So at Weta, anything we attempt, we always go out, we'll shoot reference, we'll make it look like the reference, and then we'll do the shot. So there's a huge part of work that goes into grounding ourselves in planet Earth in real life.
So it's just not your computer. You are shooting. You are
absolutely.
There's so much of homework going on.
Absolutely. There's some really interesting shoots we've done on this film. So just a couple that I was interested in, I thought were pretty spectacular, is when, that sequence where Quaritch is on the sea dragon and he's looking for them. He's going to every village, and he goes to this village and he tortures the people in the village, and he lights up the Maruis, which are their houses, on fire. So we shot a whole bunch of references, some really fun. So Dylan Cole, who's one of the art directors at Lightstorm, he actually designed the scale model. It's just a scale model, so it's smaller than the real thing, but it was made of bamboo. It had the same structure. And on a backlot in Wellington, we shot it. We actually set it on fire. We got some of our special effects crew bring out flamethrowers. We shot flamethrowers. So we'll do very complex things like that, because how else would you set a computer graphics fire on a woven hut if you didn't know how it's going to look in real life? So we shot this reference. We built a model because we captured, there's a system on set where you can capture the geometry of something that you've shot on set, and we created it. We showed it to Jim. We said, hey, we matched what you shot on the backlot. And once he was happy with it, we could set anything on fire. So there's a lot of fun things we'll do. We'll shoot simple things like go down with a phone and shoot something on the beach. And for 5 years I've worked on this project, I have not been able to take a holiday picture without actually saying, this could be a reference for something I'm working on, while my husband is posing in the back waiting for me to take a photo.
But the fact that you could take a holiday during this time, that's great, right?
Yes.
got to get to that, when you're working on a film like this, it looks, what it sounds to me like, it's we all know it's a huge project, but what it sounds is so complicated, like so many things goes into it. It's just not sitting in front of the computer, like you said. There's so much to it. But tell me about these deadlines, and how long did it take? If you're making one scene, how long does it take, back forth, getting it sanctioned from him? How does it work?
So usually, so the timeline for this is, I came on this project in 2018. And in 2018, we had a 2-year R&D period, which is we had a few shots turned over from Jim, bit of examples of different kind of shots. So we had a forest shot, we had a water shot. And when we didn't have a shot from him because he was still shooting the cameras, we would just make up a shot. We would just say, hey, you know what? Jim said that there's going to be something underwater or something on fire. Let's just make up something. So we spent 2 years just planning out 3,250 shots. Is what do we need to do in the last 3 years of production? And that's what we spent the first 2 years on. We had a group called the Water Task Force, which was people from every different department and skill set you could think of. We had PhD students who knew about corals. We had fire experts. We had rendering experts. And all of these people, we all got together for 2 years. We just planned. That's all we did, is we prepared. We made a workflow, we tested out, we shot a lot of reference, so that when the real production started. So the first shots we started, which were test shots, we were like, okay, we're just going to use this as a test to prove something or set up a workflow. Probably took 6 months, but we knew that was going to be the case because they're test shots. There's one shot in the film, which is the first shot we worked on. The iteration number was 2,400. We did 2,400 versions of it until we nailed it. And this is not even, we're not presenting to Jim. This is all internal. We're just working at VFX until we think, okay, you know what? This iteration looks like what we can present Jim. Now we got a recipe, we got a workflow. But then once you do it, once you do this kind of work on test shot and we spend this kind of time on R&D, once production starts, it's fast. You can get the rest of the shots through pretty quickly.
Wow, sounds interesting to me. Have you ever worked on 2 different projects at the same time, or is it just when you're working on one project, you would just concentrate on that?
Definitely working on one project, especially a project like this. It's so, there's a lot of things going on and there's a lot of shot count. And for me personally, I prefer just staying in Pandora. I, entered Pandora in 2009, which is when I moved to New Zealand to work on the first Avatar. And if I work on the next sequel, it'll be a decade in Pandora.
I'm sure you will be on the next sequel. I'm sure. But, because you said 2009, do you remember the first time you were told about working on Avatar? Because when Avatar released is when we were introduced to the world of Avatar, but you were introduced to Avatar much before us. So tell me, what was your reaction?
It was mind-blowing. And when I watched in the theater, I remember there are some scenes in the movie that just blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it. I remember when Jake meets Neteri for the first time and they're on this wooden log and these little wood sprites come down. I just thought it was so magical. The whole movie was so magical. And for me, Jim's filmmaking is so powerful that to me, these characters feel real. I know they're not real, but they feel real. Like I feel like I know Jake, and I know he had this love story with Neteri in 2009. Now he's a dad, and this movie is all about family. These characters feel real to me. It doesn't feel like a visual effects made up. These are performances. These are people, and we're in their world.
What was it working with James Cameron? Also, did you go on shoots? Like, did you see him shooting it? Were you there? Please tell me, what is the kind of relationship you all share?
It was amazing. James Cameron is my favorite director to work with. Now, he has been in New Zealand, in Wellington, for the last couple of years. So we were very close. We were only 5 minutes away from our studio to Stone Street, which is where he was. We had 100% access to him. We had multiple sessions in a day. He's extremely collaborative. I love that about him, is he's very collaborative. He's also very generous in his praise. He was always appreciative of the kind of work that VFX is doing. And because of his visual effects background, he knows what people are doing, and he offered solutions sometimes that even we wouldn't think of. So it was an amazing experience. There's a bit of a masterclass every time you interact with Jim. Is something to learn.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I had so many more questions, but I'm running out of time. But thank you so much for talking to us.
Very nice meeting you, Abira.
Lovely meeting you. Thank you. Bye.
See ya. Have a nice week.
You too. Bye.